Okay, so let's just start just with a deepish riding horse. So head suspended, chin in, back of the neck pushing back into the collar of your shirt or jacket, even if it's imaginary. This is relaxed but not collapsed. So the feeling of the ward off, okay, let's just get the tail first. So the tailbone heavy. Yeah, so the lower back is sort of stretching out, is flattening out a little bit. And then the ward off. So the elbows are up and out, and the feeling in the shoulders is almost like they're sort of rounding over. So it's the feeling here in the shoulders that gives you your wings. The hands are coming towards each other. So the idea of this posture is that it's sort of bringing you together. Yeah, you're pulling yourself together in a sense. But what tends to happen with it, because of the way our minds are structured, and because of our dislike of pain, is that what we tend to do is push with the legs. So in other words, my lower body is pushing down and my upper body is being lifted. So there's basically a separation happening between the two halves of the body all the time. So that's what we don't want. So we want this feeling that the legs are pulling us down rather than trying to push me away, so that these two halves of my body are actually coming together and blending in. So they're strongest here. And it's just a different mindset. So what's striking, you know, when you teach Tai Chi, is just how unaware people are of this part of their body, yeah, and how they basically hate any touch of it, yeah, and they would say, oh well, that's private, it's sort of sexual, yeah, I don't want you touching that area. But actually it's just because they're unaware of it. And it's partly because they're pulling away from it all the time. So their upper body is out here in this world, their lower body is down there in that world, and there the twain shall meet. So we're just trying to pull the two together. So this is sinking down to here, and the earth is rising up into here. It's not pushing two things away like that. but pulling two things together. And it's just a different mindset. So that's what we mean by compassion. So it's this ability to pull things together into a relationship and just help it work rather than separate. And so when you work on that, what you just become very aware of, particularly here, the hip joints, these folds in the groin. So these begin to be the softest, the most receptive, the most sensitive parts of the body, rather than a no-go area. So when we yield, we're taking the person into our groin. Yeah? So when I yield, I'm drawing the person in, but I'm not only drawing them into here, I'm drawing my own components. Yeah? So I'm pulling myself down into this spot and I'm drawing the ground up into this spot. So basically, so the struggle is just to stay in riding horse and keep a smile on your face. That sort of smile of acceptance and compassion, and an embracing smile. So the feeling should be that this Dantian is a very natural place for you to reside, for you to abide. So everything is pulling back to here. And you can feel as soon as your mind wanders, you stray from here and enter like a world that's going on here, on this plane. So really it is sinking, it's just bringing yourself down to a lower level and just trying to stay there. And it's a level that exists in the real world. This is like just a sort of, it's of the mind. It doesn't really have any reality outside of that. So I'm being drawn to here all the time. But in order to come out of here and enter this world, basically what I need to do, although even very slightly, is rear up. So I need to stick my tail back a little and just it's what they say in Tai Chi is you bring up the chi, you let the chi rise. And so key to keeping yourself anchored here is just that heavy sacrum, just not letting yourself rear up. So the mind is just funneling down to here all the time. The earth is siphoning up to here. And I'm just surrounding it from behind. Okay, so now let's try those Qigongs we were doing. The ones where you make those four connections. So let's try it from here, this stance. Now, if the legs are really, it's too difficult, then you can change into any posture. You can even sit down. But the important thing is to do it slowly, to deliberately do it. Don't fail. Yeah. So if you feel the legs getting really tired and then you just have to stop, just don't do this. Yeah. Don't let it deflate because the energy will just go. Just decide, okay, I'm going to take a higher posture and just bring yourself up. Yeah. Deliberately. Okay. So let's just try. So just gentle. Yeah. So the energy is coming down over and through your body and it's rising up either side. Okay, now just feel as you bring it up, there's a tendency to do this. There's a tendency to let the chest rise. Just try not to let that happen. So it's not really affecting the chi inside you. You're just bringing the chi from outside up and in. You're trying to get it to rain chi down on you, if you like. Yes, so you're just trying to be as relaxed as possible. So the body will just start feeling heavier and heavier. So you'll start to feel the inertia of the body, its reluctance to move. Yeah, so what we want to feel in the body is its inertia, its reluctance to move, but also its desire to turn. Yeah, so we think of turning the body, think turning the waist and moving the body as being two very different things. So it's like the body has no inertia on the turning. Yeah? So as you're doing this, what's wanting to happen? It's wanting to slip out of phase all the time. So it's just wanting to sort of drift off center and just let that happen. Yeah. So there's always one hand that tends to lead a little bit and then it switches over, the other hand takes over. So they're always sort of slipping to and fro. So when you allow that, there's a sense that you've relaxed some rigidity that you'd been imposing to keep it locked into some image of what's meant to be happening. So the chi is like, the chi develops when you reach sort of equilibrium and some sort of steady state. So when you set something in motion and just keep it going, then the chi will slowly get stronger. But then what we also want to feel is the spirit. So the spirit is like the devil. It's the devil in the detail. So that it's the little spot in the eyes of the yin yang symbol. So there's always an element that's trying to sort of disrupt what you're doing, that's trying to just test it, being a bit cheeky and a bit naughty. Yeah. So chi requires this sort of steady, like constant velocity, if you like. Just something has to be unchanging for chi to develop. And spirit is always trying to change that. Spirit is just the energy of change. So what's making you turn, especially, you know, if you just turn regularly like that, then it's no longer real turning. It has to be erratic. Yeah, there's a sense it's turning this way, but then it wants to turn back. It never slips into a pat habit. So that's like the creative spark that's at the center of the chi. The chi just creates like an ideal environment for the spirit to work, but they're sort of working against each other. Wow. Okay, and then just back out to here. So again, the feet are bringing the ground up and gravity is pulling me down to here. So it's almost like you're slumping into your dantian. Sacrum and coccyx heavy. The min meng is pronounced. The belly is withdrawn slightly. Okay, now let's try the next circuit. So that was just basically bringing the chi from outside in or down, yeah, down through you, like a wash, like a shower. So this one is just reaching down into the ground. So imagine your fingers going into the ground and then just lift the earth chi up and just bring it to the belly and a little bit higher maybe, and then just let it drop. So you're bending the legs slightly here. And then the important thing here is when you rise up, not to let your bum go out and not let the chest rise. So in other words, they say don't let the chi rise. Just keep the tail tucked under and just bring this energy up into the dantian and then dip down again. So just feel as though your fingers dip into the ground And then all they have to do is just rise up gently, and they'll catch some of that energy. Yeah. And then gradually, as you do it, it starts wanting to come a bit higher up until eventually you're reaching the top of your head, but just let it develop. Don't impose it. Just feel where it wants to go. And again, once you've got it established and you're happy with it, then just let it start turning a little bit like we did before. You don't need to do anything different with the arms. Just let it, so here I'm just letting it turn this way slightly. Yeah, so on the turn, it's like I'm really wobbly. Yeah, so I can't keep myself still on the turn because it's just so well oiled by this quiet, attentive mind. Wow. So what John would say is lose yourself in the exercise. Become so, you sort of abandon yourself to the imagery, to the visualization, like a child would. Yeah, so you can think of like lifting down and pulling up one of those, those kettle weights with the handle that everyone uses in the park now. You can imagine you're pulling up a weight or something. And then just slowly become aware of the perineum, so the muscles pulling up. So like the anus, the rectum, the perineum, the testicles all rising up and then releasing. So we want that to kick in gently. So there's a sense of something in the middle that's rising up, which drives me even more into the outside edges. What we don't want is for the up to make me knock kneed. So I don't want it to bring the knees in. If anything, as I draw up, the knees should just want to sort of, I'm jettisoning the knees. I'm just letting them fall away. Yeah, so there's very much ward off in the legs, but on the vertical plane. Drawing up. Whoa. Down. Yeah, so how do you get it to come up without doing this, without letting the chest rise? That's the difficulty. You just have to let it build up. So it's basically the lower back just swinging forwards a bit. So the belly's swinging forwards. So this is coming forwards. And then you can get a sense of lifting here without doing this with the spine. So heavy coccyx, and then it can come up way and then down. So as you quieten down into an exercise, more and more levels of detail start to reveal themselves to you. So by the time you finish the exercise, it should be completely different than when you started it. And then one more, dipping in the ground, drawing that energy up the inside of the legs, through these poles in the groin, into the dantian, up the spine, to the top of the head, and then let it flow down the front. So let's just try one more. Down. And it's sticky, that the energy is sticky, it's clinging to you. And then just swing the sacrum forwards a little bit. And all the way to the top. And then just back out to here. Yeah, so when you work on the chi, you just get so sort of relaxed, you just feel heavy. So the arms, if your arms just want to stay down here with the dantian, then just let them. Feel the legs, the feet beckoning the ground up and sinking into this area. So this is a place where you come together. It's not a place from which you're fleeing, which it is for the average person. Okay, now let's try the open close one. So it's just this is the simplest and also the strongest, if you like. So coming inside, closing, going outside, opening. So remember, it's the range of your mind. So here you're coming into an infinitesimal point in the dantian, and here you're reaching out to infinity. Again, it's always slipping and sliding. It's always twisting. There's always a turn. Not too much. If the turn gets too great, then it just becomes regularized, becomes flat. So there's part of you always being surprised by what's cropping up. Yeah, so remember, Tai Chi is always about yielding. It's always about response. You never initiate anything. So there's a force drawing you out. So you just connect with that. And then there's your own Dan Chen pulling back. You just connect with that. So you're just switching from two natural forces. So you're responding to this call from outside. And then you're responding to this pull inside you. So I love that thing in the Catholic Church. You know, they say you never choose to pray. Because the call to prayer is always there. You just respond to it. It's just that normally you're not responding to it. So it's just breathing. And so the whole idea of internal work really is through extended practice to enter realms that are completely unavailable to you in any other way. Yeah, so if you kept this going for an hour, then you get to somewhere you couldn't get to without doing this for an hour. And so you're breaking through into sort of deeper realms. And you can't cheat it, you can't speed up the process. Yeah, so this is the price of admission. Yeah, so just feel as your legs get more and more tired, you're sort of pulling away from this. So you're more conscious of the feet on the ground, more conscious of your anxiety that's all centered around here, and less conscious of this area. So we're just struggling to keep this together. And now just back to here. Yeah, so just be aware of these two pockets here. So just beneath the collarbone in the sort of pit of the shoulder. And similarly here. So it's like there's 2 points either side of the center line that are sort of tussling a little bit, and it's that gives you this propensity to turn. Yeah, so it's almost as though the center line of the body is almost like an imaginary plane. It doesn't really exist. What exists are these points, temples here and here. And they're sort of doing this all the time. There's like a shimmer going on between them. Yeah, so the legs just need to relax so that these two can produce a turn when they interact. Okay, now let's do the last one of those, which is reaching forwards and welcoming the other person. So just bringing the arms up and just welcome. Now, instead of just dropping them down again, which is a bit depressing, let's just bring it in to here. Yeah, so it's like that other person now exists between your two hands. And then you just let the energy drop through your body. And then you just reach out again. And then whatever they offer, you just bring it in, even if it's rejection. So down. Yeah, so the trouble with Qigong and with any sort of this sort of internal work is that it all becomes a little bit self-engrossed and self-obsessed. So this is really you reaching out, and then it's like what happens here, this just empties. You want this feeling that you've disappeared, is all you have, is all you are now, is this extension towards the other. And then in and down. So in order to receive what the other has to offer, I have to abandon self. Yeah, so it's similar to the first one we did, but this is specific. This is specifically that imaginary person standing in front of you. And you can actually imagine a specific person if you want. Someone you need to forgive. And you can't. And just, again, just keep the belly. So you're reaching out and you're bringing them into your heart, but the heart is just a hole into the dantian, and then it just sinks down here. This is the natural place for it to reside. The heart is just like a door, really, or a window, or a mirror. So what? Whoa. Yeah, so just imagine you've been doing this all day. You're so tired. The mind just can't face the imagery anymore. And yet it's carrying on. So it's like it's doing itself. So your mind has just disappeared, it's gone. Compassion fatigue. I love that phrase. And then again, just let this sort of turning slip in. It's like a playfulness. It's that keeps you going. That sort of sense of humor. Yeah, so let's just let it slip into alternate arms. So one hand goes out, and as it comes in, the other hand goes out. Yeah. So as you do the other one, it's always sort of trying to slip into this. Yeah, so this is, if you like, is like creating the circle. So it's as I turn back, you see the circle is created. So yielding creates a circle. So to start with, I extend the welcome, and then I create a circle. So I create like a space, an enclosed space for that person to come into, like a you know, a pleasant space for them to enter, like a home, hearth and home. Yeah, so on one level, you're extending this sincere welcome. On another level, you're being quite sneaky because you're sneaking up the person. Yeah. So we're just always trying to look for the two contrasting elements, if you like. And then just bring it back to the just doing both together. Yeah, so how do you do that? Easier said than done. Ooh. So extending, but it's always wobbling about that center point. And if you just let the wobble get really extreme, it would become what we've just done. Ooh. Yeah, so it's difficult extending a welcome to the other, to absolute otherness, to the stranger, because you never know. You know, they might have an axe in their hand, or they may reject you. So what is it that enables you to? It's just your sense of humor, the fact that you can just laugh it off, and that's in the turn. That's in this sort of this wriggly element here. So that's the waist, if you like. Yeah. So there's this sort of debate about, is it the hips, is it the waist? Yeah, so the hips are like the bones, yeah. So when I turn the hips, I'm doing this, yeah. So you can see there's like a structural turn. But when you're turning the waist, it's more this sort of wriggly, muscular movement. And that's the sense of humor. There's no sense of humor in your hips. It's all in the waist. So, yeah, so we want the waist to be active, but not willful. Yeah. So it's coming from its own activity rather than from something that your will is imposing upon it. So this is a big difficulty in any sort of internal work, is just somehow getting the correct activity. You soon learn that absolute passivity is no use. Yeah, you just disappear up your own fundament, you know? And so it has to be really active in the sense of wanting to come out, you know, wanting to explore. So there's part of you that's just wanting to sort of settle into the bliss, you know, into that feeling of just energy and ooh. But there's that other part of you that's constantly looking for cracks and constantly looking for ways to escape and make a nuisance of itself. And that's pure waste. Yeah, and eventually they sort of, all these 4 exercises, you're not sure which one you're doing, yeah, because they all sort of blur together. So what you end up doing is like an amalgam of all 4. It's breathing, it's bringing in the chi, it's bringing up the chi from the ground, it's opening up to the other. And now let's, to bring it back to normal, let's just do a little bit of this one. Yeah, but really try and feel it in the waist rather than the hips. So it starts in the waist and then goes to the hips. So it's something tightening and wriggling in my this whole area, like a belt of muscle, like a corset of muscle. So you're twisting and turning. It's got this sort of wriggly, fighting, sort of struggling. It's like a struggle. Yeah, so this is like your spirit struggling against your own stupidity, struggling against your inertia. And it's that produces the energy, really. Ooh. Yeah, so just remember John, and he'd just disappear inside. He'd hunch over, and he'd just be like this, you know. So it'd all come from his back and his waist. His waist was the motor, and his back was sending the energy out. Okay, and now just let it swell out. Heavy sacrum. Dantian is pulling slightly. This is there, but it's not terribly pronounced. And this is just sort of hollow, it's just dropping. And you're really strong from the back. So the shoulder blades are pulling away from the spine. Same thing here in the legs. And again, just this sense of the feet pulling the ground up to here and gravity driving you down to here. So this is a natural meeting place if you have enough strength in your legs and enough stillness here to let it happen, because it's wanting to happen. Okay, very good. So that's pretty much an hour of standing, albeit with a bit of wobbling. Okay.